If y'all would, find your seats and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. We're excited to have you back for another very interesting lecture that we have for you today. I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Robin Whitfield. Robin is an artist and is originally from Clinton. She now lives and works in Grenada in north central Mississippi. She works on location in rivers, swamps, and forests near her downtown studio and around the state. Her work explores the poetic relationships of form and color found in nature, in discovering and sharing the beauty of ecology, natural habitats, and biodiversity is a driving force in her creative life. Robin works on paper with traditional watercolors and pigments gathered from the earth. She graduated from Delta State University in 1996 with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in painting and travels the South painting on public land, teaching creative workshops and giving presentations that connect people to nature. She's been on the Mississippi Arts Commission roster since 2006, an artist in residence for Art Place, Mississippi since 2002, and an Audubon Master Naturalist of Mississippi since 2007. Her artwork and illustrations have been featured in numerous publications, including Words on Nature, a collection of writings by Eudora Welty, and edited by Patty Carr Black. She was selected to be the artist in residence at Noxubee National Wildlife Refuge for the fall of 2014. Over the past decade, she's been director of Friends of Chakchiuma Swamp Natural Area, a 300-acre mature cypress tupelo swamp with a surrounding bottomland forest located about a quarter mile from the Grenada Center. Robin and her group, Friends of the Swamp, worked with the city of Grenada to preserve the swamp for all people to experience the beauty and biodiversity of this unique wetland habitat. Now, I've been familiar with her work for a long time, and she's had a connection, I think, with our museum. And I was really excited about this today. And if you please help me welcome Robin Whitfield.
All right. Can y'all hear me? All right, good. And I'm only going to correct you on one thing you said. I'm not about to give y'all a lecture, and if I could, I would. But I hope to give you a presentation that will help you understand a little bit more about my connection to this swamp, and I think how we all can connect. I think everyone in here is probably connected to a special place. I think maybe that's why you're here. A lot of you here are involved with wildlife as a wildlife biologist or a naturalist, and I think y'all are going to relate to what I'm saying in that. So I want to take you more on a journey, okay, or on a little virtual tour. And also, I'm glad you introduced me, because I was thinking, I don't have time to introduce myself. Because the other thing, when I was told I had an hour to give a presentation, I was like, God, that's a long time. And I was like, that's really not a long time. So I'm going to try to not go down too many rabbit trails like I tend to do, and really stick to some things I would like to share with y'all. And I'm going to this presentation is about telling you more about this swamp, how I found it, how we know each other, and what is this place, and why is it important. Hang on, I got to figure out how to use this. So I want to start way up here, because I didn't have this perspective in the beginning, and I think where a place is, and understanding and ending its context is everything. I grew up here, like Charles was saying, and I just grew up in suburbia, and I really had not looked at maps. I didn't have internet, anything like that. So I never even thought about this right here. I never even knew it was called the Mississippi Alluvial Valley until probably in the last decade. But I found myself here in college, and then here, I ended up moving over to Grenada for a job. Now, the fact that we can even see these places from this distance is kind of what I want to point out, okay? The reason we can see the Mississippi Alluvial Valley is because of what's missing. It's missing a forest. It used to be the densest jungle wetland forest, possibly in North America. I don't know if that's right. I'm usually the expert talking, and today y'all are really the experts, and I do want to invite y'all to please add in, and if y'all have anything that might help this presentation be stronger. I'm normally giving this to the pilot club, and so and they've never really thought about nature at all. So, and here's the Grenada Lake. It leaves a big scar on the land. It's the reservoir that holds back the Yellow-Bellied River and part of the flood control of the Mississippi Delta, which is here. So, having gone to school here and moved over here, we're going to go in a little closer, has really kind of set my whole perspective onto the world. And I'm going to say this, I know I'm going to say this more than once, but this is kind of the subtitle of this whole, I think this could have been the title, maybe not even subtitle, is Everything is Connected. I had the wonderful opportunity to spend this past weekend with Robert Poor, the landscape architect, and I think he said that every 5 minutes. And he couldn't have said it more, he could have said it way more, and he couldn't say it enough. Everything is connected, okay? Certainly with me and in this whole story I'm about to tell you. So here I am in Cleveland. Y'all notice there's nothing over here, no trees, not hardly even any oxbows, and I move over here to Grenada. And anyway, I'm pretty entranced with what's there. I end up moving downtown, which is right here. And we're going to go in a little closer. Well, let me come back here real quick. I know a lot of y'all may not, I don't want to assume y'all know what's happened here. That could be a presentation in and of itself. But what you're seeing here these are old river channels. And they're green because they still have some cypress trees in them. A lot of people call them duck holes. But they're not a system. There's no forest around them. These are fields. They go right up to the edges of most of these places. When you start getting over here, we're coming into some more forest. But y'all say, I would call this an island. These are islands of habitat. And I mean, habitat's a very loose word in my opinion for that. But these are clusters of trees in water, okay? And I didn't know that then. To me, a cypress tree and some water was a swamp. I'm telling you, I've learned over the course of 20 years, I'm just beginning to see, okay? And I'm just a normal person like the people I generally am talking to, and maybe some of y'all like out here. I'm not schooled in anything. I've gone on to become a Mississippi Master Naturalist, and that was sort of the beginning of my education back in 2007. But my eyes were teaching me what I needed to know. I just didn't know how to think about it. So I live here, okay? And luckily the green starts here, y'all see? And this is the Yellow-Bellied River. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to take this long on most slides, but I just want y'all to understand this part of it before I get into the rest, because it's really important to me. So here is the Yellow-Bellied River coming in to make the Yazoo down here at Greenwood. And y'all notice it's actually a pretty green river. It's got, this is Mount Mason Wildlife Management Area. Our state owns this, thank goodness. This is an amazing place. Tallahatchie National Wildlife Refuge is also connected here, okay? So it makes this big green area, bottomland forests, swamps, bayous. And all along here is a good bit of private land, but it's mostly hunting clubs. I go down the river a good bit. And here, we're going to get in a little closer when you get into Grenada. We have Grenada Lake, okay? And this is downtown Grenada, and my studio is somewhere right in here. We're going to get a little bit closer in a minute. And so I moved down here in 1997 downtown, and I just started like any just normal artist would do. Just go, oh, what's around here, and I end up here, and I'm there's a bridge here, and you can just start looking around. And I finally realized it was owned by the city, and I could be there. And so I never saw many other people, but mostly I saw what everybody else sees. Okay, and I'm about to show you that. But before I move on from this slide, I do want to point out a couple other things. I want y'all to notice, here's our town. This is kind of the northern edge of our town. It used to be our downtown center, but since the interstate has moved in, it no longer, it is a business district, but it's more for weird people like me who have art studios. And we have other creative sorts live down here as well. And here, of course, we have a big piece of public land over here. This is part of the Lost Bluff hiking trail here. And this is all city property in here, and this is our wastewater treatment facility. I was telling, for all you birders out there, this is the hot birding spot. But you can see why. And the point is, it's where it is. We've got a river. These are all cypress sloughs, old river channels here. All this is old river channels. Just, this is riddled. And then bottomland hardwood forest surrounding it. So, now I didn't know any of that now when I first got there. I'm telling y'all what I know now. So this is what most people in Grenada see. Oh, maybe I am where no. I got this. I promise it's the only slide I have with words, but I wanted to not forget to tell y'all some of these, and I'm going to keep going where I just was. So what I do want to tell y'all is this is what I've discovered over time, not what you see. This is 300 acres. This is got a cypress tupelo swamp and some old river channels in there, and they're pretty deep. They rarely go dry. It's got an amazing bottomland hardwood forest for the size that it is around it. That it's not, it's outside even this 300 acres, like I'm just showing y'all. This is much larger. But we, humans, we like to put little borders on things. So this area that the city owns is 300 acres, but it's a link in this bigger chain, and that's really what I want y'all to see. And then we have, I'm just calling this a meadow there's some liberty here. There's a place that has been, dumped in, cut over, filled in, that is allowed to grow Bermuda and Johnson grass, amongst broom sedge and other things. But we do have an open habitat, which is actually important and for diversity. And I hope to keep it that way. Now, I have always been transfixed with this place for many, many years. But in 2009, I thought, well, I need to find out. I want to share this with people. I want our city to get involved. And so I called Andrew Whitehurst in the room, and I said, I want to see if I can get this in the Natural Heritage Areas program. And so he came up, and anyway, he and Heather found some things and said this was, in fact, really nice habitat. And we also, at the time, were becoming a little organization where we we're going to try to make trails, and we ended up becoming a friends group, but this was like the beginning of just some concerned citizens. And we wanted to change this. People called this Dump Lake, and we thought there's got to be something better out there. But this is also going to explain its current name that no one can say, which I don't know if that's much better. But we thought let's have a community competition, and let's name this place and see what people want to name it and have some ownership by the community. And so I think the Historical Society got together and they all put in this name, And it is Chakchiuma, but like everyone hesitates, and so you just call it the swamp. I just call it my swamp. You call it your swamp. But those were the native peoples of that river, and I think they just kind of, I love the idea of the name, but it is awkward to have a name no one can say. But I still like it better than Dump Lake. So this was our county, in the 30s, 40s, 50s. This is where people dump their trash, okay? So that's all the kind of important stuff y'all are going to learn today. Now y'all are going to learn, to me, the fun, really interesting things. But it's not going to be quite interesting yet, because I want to go back to when you come out there. If you were just driving by, this is what people say. They see this. This is that dumped-in area that's been cut over, and there's some Bermuda. This is that. We have a sign out here as well, and we had just burned it, actually. We were trying so hard. After I burned it, I got even more depressed with all the fire ants I saw, like mountains out there. But anyway, so this is what you see, and people drive by and they go, "What? That's not a swamp," and they just keep going. And if they really look closer, they might see. Y'all just notice the boundary on. I really didn't fully explain that. Sorry. Here's the river on one end. Here's the railroad track. Here's a factory on one end of it. This is 333 that goes out to the lake. And here's Highway 51. Okay. I purposely didn't draw that out because I wanted y'all to see that its relationship to everything around it. But I did mean to point that out. So you're coming along. Here's Main Street. You're going across the bridge. You see the river. You see that field. You're going down the road, you see this ditch, and you look out in the winter and you see that. And most people don't see it at all. It's like what I call the green blur. And if you were brave, you go down, you turn where the sign is, and you come out to our little boardwalk that we've made, and you sit there. And you go, oh, look at some cypress trees. Or you probably, a lot of people, they don't know what that is. They just go, oh, look, some trees in the water. But a lot of people do know cypress trees. And so I do want to point out, for those of you who actually may or may not know cypress trees, the cypress is what you expect to see when you see the word swamp. And if you have that where you don't see a cypress tree, you should be worried. And so, of course, you're going to see some wonderful cypress trees there they're mostly of the same age. A lot of them were cut out at some point. And so they live in the water, and it's often dry out there where you'll see better their little protrusions called cypress knees that grow off the roots. Help keep it stable. If you look up, you'll be able to see their beautiful This is the fall of the year where their leaves, which they're conifer, but they do lose their leaves, which hence the bald. They go bald. And here's their cone. Now, I just had to throw this in. I throw in a gall whenever I get the chance. But if you see these things on, a lot of people think these are their seeds, but these are a type of gall that are unique to someone in this room probably knows more than me about this, and I wish we could have a whole conversation. But if you do, tell me about it after this presentation, because I really would like to know what makes that. Now, I also can't talk about cypress without telling you about its best friend, which you'll also see in the water, which a lot of people just think they're cypress too, I think. But this is a tupelo gum, or a water tupelo. And it is also standing in the water. It has broad leaves. It's deciduous. And here they are with a cypress snag. Here's the cypress snag and everything else, other than here's our little cypress over here. But if it's kind of I always think of them like dancers, and I think of the cypress kind of big and sturdy in the water. And so those two things, you know you're going to see all that, okay? But most people see that and they leave. In fact, they don't see the other obvious thing does anybody else see the other plant in here? Like a major plant that's, it's my favorite. The most people go, ooh, look at all that algae. And this is my favorite plant to talk about, and I'm not going to try to go on about it. I have too much to show y'all today. But it was I love it so much because I also assumed that I knew what it was before I looked closer. And it took me a long time to look closer of going out there. And so here I am a little close. I got a kayak, and that will help you look much closer because you're going through it. And here it is a little closer. But we've got a different duckweeds here. I think there's several species. I've been told that by people who know such things. And, I could just really do a whole presentation on duckweed because I love it so much. But suffice it to say, it should be in a swamp. It helps keep the water clear. It helps shield it from heat and provides a lot of nutrition to ducks and other animals. And anyway, it's a fascinating little tiny, I'm going to think of it as a baby water lily because that's what it looks like to me. And we're going to look at it closer in a second. But here's another assumption. And I'm spending so much time on this in the beginning because I just want y'all to see the assumptions we all make because you pass places like this every single day and you just keep going. Okay, this is behind every little woodlot, these are all over the place, these special places, but you just drive past them. And so I want you to, that's why, I'm just trying to make a few points before I move pretty quick. So here, I just assumed I'm looking at the fall version of duckweed. Okay, this is another part of the swamp. And so one day I finally started looking a little closer, and here is duckweed mixed with this plant. And I'm like, I look closer, this is a totally different plant. I didn't know what it was. I went and looked it up and found out that it is a tiny aquatic fern called Mosquito Fern. And so together, they often will, they are, and should be in many swamps. And I find this absolutely fascinating and kind of like that surprise moment where you're like, it's right in front of you the whole time, but you just don't see it. So you notice it more in the winter, and I don't know, I only notice Mosquito Fern in the winter. I don't know if I'm just not noticing it or if it's there. It's one of those things I just haven't had time to really look into. But I just want you to know these are some obvious things that you may or may not go. Just because you're there doesn't mean you see it. So I just invite you to continue to start looking closer because I as an artist, I kind of have that need and desire to look closer, and I think that is what has led me to be more of a naturalist. I don't know otherwise what has otherwise why I don't have any science background. So this is. And I put this slide up so I could tell y'all that this is the North Trail at Chakchiuma Swamp. And most people never go here. They don't see it. They don't even notice that sign. Because as you're driving by, you see a lot of vines and young trees. Because on the edge of a road where sun is, you're always going to see that. But as soon as you enter down that path, I call this my magic veil. As soon as I walk through that little opening, that's where the magic happens. And this is one of my favorite spots, and I have way too many pictures from this particular part. This is the bottom. This enters into the bottomland forest, where you've got some really old river channels that are almost filled in, where there's more like vernal pools. So from here, I'm going to kind of take y'all through this a little fast, probably faster than I'd really like, but I want to leave a little time at the end to tell y'all a little bit more about. I'm going to start a story right now before I begin, and then I'll tell you the end of the story when we get to the end. But I just want y'all to know that this time last year, I went up to that I had my backpack on with my paint supplies. I walked up to paint it was a whole week of painting. I walked up and I saw timber harvest ribbons all surrounding that forest. And I'm like, whoa, you know? And so so this past year has been something, okay? I'm going to finish this story at the end. I'm pretty much going to leave it there. But I want y'all to see what happens when you walk through that, down through that trail. And I'm not going to show you pictures from all over, but a lot of them will be on this particular forest. And the timber harvest ribbons were on both sides of the road, okay, all of it, and other than the river trunks. So, but for now, we're not going to think about that. I just want to show you what's there. And I'd like to take you through this in the course of a year, because this is kind of this is how my life is. I gauge it by the year in the swamp. I know when I think about what I want to paint. I know this place well. I'm sure y'all have that special place. You know what's going to be blooming or here. And I go to see a special friend sometimes. So, because I know this mushroom might be up or this or that. So, we're going to start here in the spring. And a lot of people, I know it's spring when I start seeing the red maples. And that's probably going to be in February, okay? A lot of people don't consider that spring, but in the swamp, it is. This is spring too, and this is from my kayak. A lot of tupelos there. Oh, this is going to be intermixed with my paintings. I decided just to kind of throw in photos and paintings to kind of show y'all, rather than separate them. And most of what you're going to see are watercolors in this part of the presentation if they're a painting. All these are done in that late winter, early spring. And what's so nice about this time of the year, there's so much light coming in. And that light allows all these unique plants to bloom and try to get their stuff done, their pollination done before the canopy covers it. And so I think, Heather, this is that plum I was showing you earlier this year. I'm still not sure what it is, but I noticed it I still find plants I didn't notice in the past. So I'd ask Heather what that was, earlier. I don't know, I just love everything about that. I just never noticed it. This is a buckeye. And what's really also unique about this particular swamp is it is a part of the Yazoo watershed, obviously, because the yellow bush, it runs down into and forms the Yazoo. But it's up in the Lurse Bluffs. So we have some plants mixing together that don't always mix down in the delta. And so for those of you who know red buckeye, you're really probably not going to find that much down in your true delta bottomlands. But it's one of my favorite hill plants, and it's common enough on the ridges out here, and there's plenty of natural ridges. And y'all, I can't get over snags and dead trees or dying trees. They're really my favorite thing. And I found as I paint them, they're more full of life than often the living trees. And whether they're on the ground or standing up, it's a repeated theme in my work. I see snakes crawling in and out of things, raccoons coming in and out of things, beetles, and all sorts of interesting things. This is a little plant called bellwort, and it's also more of a hilly type plant that this only grows on one little ridge there in the bottomland. An orchid called tway-blade orchid. It's so hard to see. I included that photo because, once again, when you're walking in the forest, that's what you see. It's so dark and brown that you might pass them all the time and you would not know it. A light almost has to be hitting it and putting a little spotlight on it for you to notice. And it's going to be there in the early spring. And so that's why I laid it on a piece of paper there to look at it a little bit better. And even a little bit better. Orchids are so beautiful and fascinating. They're such a surprise to find. And another dead tree. Well, this circle, just, look at the geometry. The circle, anything could come out of there. You just don't know. I just love it. And another favorite spring plant. And this is a pretty populous understory plant there in the bottomland there. It's y'all know what this is? This is Pawpaw, yay. I love being in a room where when I ask that, people actually know what that is. And it's one of the things you would not know it's blooming unless you really know to notice it's blooming. You look up and you think it's an old dead leaf or something. And this is once it's starting to really leaf up. I had to throw a few in from this wonderful day we had this year. I can't help but mention this museum is so fabulous for every reason. But I called and talked with Matt earlier this year and asked if they could bring a team out to really do a biological inventory. And there they come. So Heather and Matt and the whole crew came out, and anyway, so here we are walking around looking at stuff. And they were out in water waiting as well. So that's more buckeye there blooming. Yes. Now, in buckeye, all this stuff is, I mean, I could just, there's so many, everything's connected. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to try that occasionally. So there's a reason all this stuff is blooming at certain times of the year, and hummingbird migration is starting at this point, okay? And hummingbirds need something to eat when they hit land, and so here it is, ready-made bird feeders, and they're telling them where to go. So buckeye, it's very important that buckeye open at a certain time as hummingbirds are coming in. And how delicious does that look if you were a hungry hummingbird? And also, I see lots of swallowtails and other butterflies who are just emerging, also fluttering around buckeye. And a lot of buckeye shots. And there's no place I'd rather. It is if you ever just want to have a fun time during migration, just go sit in a patch of buckeye quietly and still for an hour, which is the advantage of an artist. I'm sitting completely, almost still painting, and while that's happening, the hummingbirds start whizzing by you, butterflies will land in your paint because they think it's a flower. It's amazing just to sit still and be quiet, which is what I think all artists and hunters who are outside, we know that because we're being, and bird watchers, probably all of y'all. It's the being still part and paying attention. So this is one of the plants that I love, and I think got helped to get this Chakchiuma Swamp area put into the Natural Areas Registry, and this is copper iris. It's a native iris we have, but it was certainly very common in the Delta prior to its denuding and all the spraying that we do on our roadsides. So it's in several different large stands there in different places. Here's one of the stands. This is probably one of the best stands, and it gets mowed and sprayed a good bit. It's right beside the road ditch there. This year it rained too much for it to be mowed, so it's extra nice. And y'all, this was new for me this year. While I was out there looking at those iris, I'm just wading around in my boots, and I'm like, whoa, we go. So I was like, wow, is that milkweed? And I start looking. Are y'all looking? Can y'all see? I'm going to show y'all a couple. Do y'all see that every stalk has at least one monarch or two? Or three? They were all different ages. And I was like, oh my gosh, I went every day to watch that for a while. And it got to where they ate it down. I mean, they ate it to the ground. In fact, I read somebody, and it was raining, and the water was coming up, and I don't normally do this, but I intervened, and I took some home with me. And only a few, because when I went back the next day, most of them, I don't know if they'd been eaten, or I found some drowned. But there were hundreds. And so I don't know really what happened to them, but I like to hope that most of them became this. I did find many of those later, hoping that they were not drowned. So y'all do know that that is the Monarch Caterpillar, and this is the Monarch Butterfly. Their chrysalis is so beautiful. I'd never really seen the gold. I just never seen that many, and so I really got to study them and see all the gold flecks that were around them. So another day from in early spring. This is right at the end of March, maybe the last day of March. I can't remember, but that's the time of year we were at. And the guys were looking in water to see what was there, because that's never really. I don't know how to look into the water, and I wouldn't know what I'd found if I found something other than a tadpole, which we did find. So, and I'd love to talk to y'all again about what y'all did find. And this is a close-up of why they'd be pulling up things, and we found a good many crayfish. Aren't those crayfish eggs? Am I correct? No. Okay. And tadpoles of I'm not sure what. And is that a Dobson fly? Is that right? No. I couldn't get it. This is one of my favorite things of the day. It was so delicate and large. It's a very large fly. When I say this is for every plant I'm looking at is my favorite plant, do y'all ever feel like that? If I'm in that moment, it would be really my favorite plant. I say, this is my favorite plant. I would say this probably many more times. This is woolly pipevine, and part of the thing that makes me a favorite plant is when it surprises me, like the duckweed. I just thought I was looking at kudzu for years. Just covering. I was like, oh, look at all that. This is just ignorance. And this is me even paying attention. Then one day I'm looking at said kudzu, and I'm seeing this stuff on there. I'm realizing that's not a kudzu flower. What is this? And then you realize all vines are not kudzu, and this looks nothing like kudzu, and not remotely. So so my eyes are open some more. Your eyes get open gradually, but you have to be looking too. So this is woolly pipevine, and it's Dutchman's pipe, some people call it that, Aristolochia, for those of you who know it by that name. And the pipevine swallowtail, this is its plant. And it is very common in the yellow bush drainage there and down into the yazoo. A common thing, but so beautiful and often not seen because this is the flower of the yellow poplar. And it's way, you only see them when they drop to the ground, maybe after a storm. It's so lovely, like butterfly wings. And this is, this is Silverbell? Is that the right name? Huh? Snowbell. I was going to say Silverbell, but I know that's not right. Snowbell. And that'd be an amazing shrub. It is just, when you catch it in full bloom like this, and when the light's hitting it just right, it just can't be beat. Just a few ferns. I mean, not that they're out to be. I mean, this has just got so many interesting ferns that, I could probably just do a whole thing on ferns. And probably one of my favorite ferns in this grouping is this adder's tongue? And Oceoglossum something, I don't know. But because it's surprised, that didn't look like a fern to me. But it's got this one leaf and this lovely little, is this a spore? I'm not sure what that's officially called, but it only has that one leaf, and so interesting. It's so much like a tongue. And you're only going to see this in the early spring, and if you're really looking. Green dragon. And it's related to Jack in the Pulpit, and it's just a little more common and more in the swampy areas. Eastern blue star, that same ditch with the iris, and it likes light. In the same ditch as well, this is false white indigo. Yeah, this ditch gets cut. I'm going to try to keep it free. There's no reason for them to cut it. That's my next project. So, anyway, and I love looking at flowers after they've dropped off, or the petals and hit the floor. This is a holly, and they always just a forest floor just fascinates me. All the different layers. We have azalea, wild azalea here, ringing. This is just on this little northern edge of the old river channel. It's the only place that the azalea grows out there. There's about 10 bushes. And this is, I always forget the name of this plant. It is lead. Is this not lead plant? Leather. Okay, leather bead. It's in the it's a type of what's the word escaping me? It's a the family, the pea. Is it a pea? Yeah. And I just didn't notice this plant. I didn't catch it blooming, and so I saw the leaves, but it took me a long time to really see it. This one I only know of one single clump of plant of Indian pink out at the swamp, but I always know when it's going to be blooming, and I go visit. It's one I'd like to encourage. The deer love it. The deer love all these too, and we have a nice, very happy white-tailed population. And it's a little piece I did about biodiversity. There's a lot of different animals living in here. Now, like I mentioned, migration, okay? We've just gone through a lot of plants that are all up at once, generally just as migration is about to really kick in. And this is a painting of one of my very favorite birds. And I think it's my favorite because I'm bad with bird calls, but this one's unmistakable, and he's a loudmouth, and I love him. And this is the yellow-billed cuckoo. Some people call him the rain crow. And see him eyeing this. He's a big caterpillar. I mean, all birds are caterpillar eaters, but he really his beak is made for caterpillar eating. And this is the only picture I've ever taken that's not blurry of the thorn-tailed warbler, so I just threw it in here because I don't have one of those really nice cameras. But this little guy is very special to me. He's common enough where I live, but I don't want to call him common. I don't think he's considered common at all. But this is the thorn-tailed warbler. And he's a wetland bird, and he's the mascot of Chakchiuma Swamp. And he's a cavity dweller. He needs old trees that's sick and have a rotten heart that he can, carve a little hole out in, and that's a rare habitat for him. And so I think that's why he's in jeopardy. But in the Malmason, and in this whole corridor where I live, all that green I showed y'all on the map, you can find him pretty readily because we still have a lot of trees in that one little corridor. It's just when he gets past Greenwood, nothing. Maybe a few things out of some of those duck holes. But. Itea. This is Virginia willow. Is that right? I never thought I'd think the Latin was more common to me than the common, but I guess it's whatever you call it in your head. This will fringe any kind of little wetland. I think y'all have some here out here, a good bit of it out here at the museum. I think some people call it Virginia Sweetspire. You can buy this one commercially. Just fabulous plant. I call this the disco ball of the swamp. And it really is I think of it as like the part, when you're looking at it, the party is going on. You can hardly see the flower for the butterflies all over it, okay? And you're going to see wasps and bees, and I mean, it is definitely the happening place. And this is, to me, when I start seeing this, I know that spring is starting to become summer, okay? It's the shift is happening. And, of course, migration is also that sign, but things are about to change. This is also one of those signs. This is that transition plant. When I see them bloom, this is called lizard's tail. And I love the way it smells. A lot of people don't even pay. If you don't catch it blooming, it's just one of those green plants growing in some wet place. It's always going to be in a wet area. But it is and maybe some of you who have little ponds, I hope that you have this in your pond. It is a kind of a ground cover in any sort of area that's kind of a muddy, maybe a transition between a deeper water and a dry forest. And there's plenty of it out at the swamp. Okay, another favorite plant. And this is it in an early stage for its seed pod, but this is called, some people call it strawberry bush. It's Unimus americana. And it is so rare to find this. It's very common in the swamp, but the deer chew it to the ground. There's one particular plant that hides behind a tree on the edge of the swamp that I always know they're going to miss. And so I can, but it is, I don't know what to do about all this nibbling, but I know where to look for what I need to see. So a type of self-heal, I'm not sure. This is in that little open meadow that has a lot of the invasives. There are some nice things out there too. Things I hope to encourage over time. Jewelweed. Such a fairly common plant, but often overlooked and not seen, I think appreciated. Notice it's just right for hummingbird and just the right color, so that's certainly a favorite food there. I see them also all in jewelweed. Milkweed. Milkweed bud. Another little favorite, just because blue is such a rare color, and as an artist I'm very attuned to color, and I think this is really the bluest plant I've ever seen, and it's very common. It's a dayflower, and is this white-throated dayflower? Is that the right? I'm glad Heather's right there. I can look. I'm right and get her nod at me or not. It's just one of those things you would eat. I'm really close up on this. It's a pretty small flower, but you gotta look close. Another real close-up there of a Luna moth. I love looking close because you see, just things are so shaggy and hairy and moths, and I didn't even know this ant was on there, so I'll look at the picture later. And this is once again, I put this slide in here for a couple of reasons. This is the only snake picture I have, and so can you show a swamp without a snake? I think they go hand in hand. I love snakes, and but that's the first question people want to know when I'm at a normal little Rotary Club. They want to know about the snake. I rarely see the snake. I just don't see snakes. I'm sure they're there. They're not hanging on every branch, and they don't want to eat you. So this one little guy, this one time, I happened to see one, and I got a picture of him. But this is very, very, I didn't even see a snake this year. Because they don't want to be seen. So when they hear me, they go away, all of us. So the only time I see them is when I sit still and I've watched them go hunting. And they don't even know that I'm there. A lot of these paintings, by the way, are really old. I'm showing y'all 20 years of paintings. This is a pretty old painting. So I want this to be a lot less about me and much more about my relationship to this swamp. That's what this presentation is for the most part. So we have our mallow. Swamp mallow, another favorite. Sorry. And there's just some things about certain plants you love, and I love the seed pod of a mallow. I love its geometry. I love that star shape. I could draw that 1,000, 10,000 times and never get tired of the beauty of that star shape. So I just had to show it to you. You can kind of sometimes tell when I particularly like the form of a plant because I do a lot of them. And I don't paint. I didn't even paint this one this year. I've not had time. I consider painting a type of conservation. In my line of work, I've always thought of painting as me going to be a witness, and in being a witness, I can then show other people what's there, and I hope that then they want to go outside and be, and pay it forward and share. and that's how our these little special places get to stay. And so this year I've been a different kind of conservationist, and I haven't had as much painting time. But this is always something I make sure that I go and sit in a big clump of mallows every year. I've done a little sitting, not enough. And some of my favorite places, once again, it's a dead tree, but I'm going to just mention, this is about the tree, but this is a dark part of the bottomland here. And when a tree falls, it opens up this, a pretty round hole because the canopy's been there. And it's like a spotlight gets put into the forest, and you get to see it in a new and different way, and then new things pop up. And so this is the first year after this tree had fallen, and I went out there not expecting, I didn't know what would come up, and there was this amazing stand of mallows just in the middle of this dark forest that just glow, these big white flowers that I had not seen there before. And so I just sat down, and, I knew what I had to do, so I did. So, more dead trees. I love that particular one. It's about to fall over. When was this? Can't even read that year, but that was several years back. Dead trees, well, they're there for a while, but he's really about gone. Right beside this dead tree are these. And let me just say, once I see these, I know we're in midsummer. There's just certain things These are, I call these spider lilies. And they pop up, and they can live in an understory, in a pretty dark understory. And I see them pop up in these little bottomland areas. This is I'm sure maybe was an old river channel. It's more like a vernal pool now. It's so filled in. But this is always so lovely all spring, filled with shallow water. And then these lilies, the leaves come up early in the spring, and then all of a sudden you go out there one day in July, and there's these just big white flowers just glowing in the darkness. And sometimes a beam of light will shine on them, and it's pretty magical. So I got this little guy hiding out on the stem, and this I've found a few little clumps of these, but this is not for this area and over. This should be a common species, but I think just because of how land is cut and treated, I don't see as much of this as I think I should see. And maybe I'm just not going out at the right time of year, but you can always see the leaves. Aw, these are little baby spiders. They were just so cute. I had to throw that in there, and I realized I think this is possibly at the wrong time of year. After I threw these in, I meant to move these up to. I think they're more of maybe they are born all different times of the year, but I think I got these in the spring. And I love spiders, but I don't really I was sitting in that clump before I realized they were there, and I'm like, whoo, But then I enjoyed really because all of a sudden I realized this whatever was moving, and it was hundreds of baby spiders, and it was actually I spent a good bit of time watching that. But most things in nature, you may not want to get like be on the snake, or the spider, but watch it. It's not going to hurt. It does it. If you kind of carefully back up. I've loved Mississippi is wonderful in that really nothing is going to eat you or kill you, and so you can just enjoy knowing that and enjoy spending time. I think there's probably things in the Amazon or something that if it bit you, you might die. I mean, I don't know. I've never been there, but in Mississippi, I don't know of anything that might. The only thing I kind of watchful for is when I hear ATVs or humans are the only thing I'm ever really worried about. So I don't even worry about banjos. It's the ATVs. I think that's the new banjo. Now, this once again, I'm going to go back to Heather knows what this is. I didn't know this till Heather came out to the swamp, and I'm like, this is one of those things you can really overlook. And because, it's just some grass stuff on some cypress knee, okay? But of all the plants I thought she would get excited about, this is not the one. But this is the one, I think, of all the plants we saw the day that when she and Andrew first came up, she was like, wow. And I sense, I'm beginning to understand, but this is Carex decomposita, is that right? Also known as cypress knee sedge. And I'm not sure why it's not as common, maybe. Has it always been not common? So it may be, has it always been that way, or just because of the way the delta's been cut over? Okay, gotcha. So this is not an uncommon plant in the swamp. It's not common either. It's not on every cypress knee, but as you go through it, you're going to see it kind of. Now, since she pointed out to me, I'm seeing it. I did not see it at all till she pointed it out. And then it became like the coolest plant, and now that helps you see it. That's why I'm kind of pointing out a few things here. I hope that this might help y'all see some things that maybe some of these things you see all the time, but you just hadn't seen it yet. So, and this one you may not. You may just have to come up and visit the swamp for this one. And there's so much fungus that's so cool out there. I think I have a few more fungus shots. And this, don't y'all just love it when the light just beams in like this? This is one of the oldest sloughs on this property is in the very northern edge of the bottomland forest. And when about midsummer, you're down to these last little pools, and it is very much the feeling of cathedral in there. I mean, I can't think of a holier place. I just love it's a painting of that same kind of feel, this dark light hole kind of shining in the darkness. Another one that can just be overlooked, this is Anglepod. I think, is it kind of like in the milkweed family, in that broader family? I don't know the name of that family, but just a neat, that's the flower of this vine. And it's more, I think of it more along in the delta. It's like I associate it more with the delta. So, the swamp has a big part of it is an island that you can only get to by kayak, and I'm right pulled up to the island in front of the cypress knees. And I took this picture this summer, and I had a really fun day of painting out there. And just always enjoy, once again, the light coming in. The water out here is very clear. It's spring fed on one end. It's got all of the shade and duckweed, all the things water in a swamp needs, or an old river town, to be, I think, fairly healthy. So. The first time I saw these in this form, I thought, that is so cool. It looks like it's some weird dinosaur or dragon hatching out of an egg. But this is a American Caesar's mushroom right before its cap pops open. Okay, and there's a painting of them after they form rings, and they're always a favorite. This has been a great year for mushrooms. I tell you what. Another, I think this is called green rusula, maybe, or something along like in that family, and that porcelain. Did that not remind you of a McCarty pottery plate? When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then I went home and did this piece. The forest floor always fascinates me, and I've started doing these little abstract pieces, because every time I try to be a little more real, it is very dissatisfying. Because a forest floor is a pretty magical place. It's pretty mysterious. That's where everything's really happening down there. All the fungus and mycelia and all those mysterious creatures that really make a forest healthy and amazing. And so I hope I can sense that maybe the rest of my life I will be exploring the topic of the forest floor in a very abstract way, trying to hint at that mystery. Part of the forest, when you're down there on the forest floor, you can miss this one just like that tway blade. This is one of our other little forest floor orchids called a craneflow orchid, and it is just brown and pink and kind of almost clear. I mean, it's like if the light's not on it, you don't see it. But it's in the dark. I mean, all my pictures are kind of dark because it's in the, you just don't see it. And but it is really beautiful, and it's a delight to just find. They tend to grow in the same, they're always in the same spot, so I kind of know where to go look for them. And while you're down on the forest floor, you're also, if you're lucky, going to see this guy. We see each other a couple times a year, and I don't know if it's the same one, but there he'll be in some other random spot. I'm trying to pay attention to the shell to see if it really is the same one. I'm not quite sure. And I see a lot of turtle shells are something you find a good bit, and out there, I don't know if that's good or bad, but after the winter every year, I will find a good many shells. Enjoy sketching. Now, another favorite plant is the pawpaw here, like I was stating earlier, and there's some pawpaw. I just love the rhythms that they create in the canopy. As you're looking out under the canopy, the way they flow is just, this is the same. I did this on the same day, but the light was going in and out, and I was just kind of going back and forth and just trying to capture that beautiful. It seemed musical to me, and I tried to capture that. Now, this is the zebra swallowtail, whose caterpillar eats the pawpaw. And I didn't find it the day I was out there painting, but I threw it in here for that reason. But when you're out there looking on the forest floor, this is also what you find. So I just find that I don't find them that often. I usually see the other swallowtails more often. There's the dayflower there, again, and another snag. More cypress tupelo there. And Meta Beauty. Now, once I start, now this is some of these plants. When I start seeing Meta Beauty, or it comes to my mind, I don't know if it. I don't know. I've never noticed when it really starts blooming, but I start thinking, oh, it's the end of summer, right? This is an end of summer plant to me. Maybe it starts blooming earlier, but I see it with the goldenrod and things as it's coming up. I also think of this as an end of summer. This is groundnut. I put this picture. Look at y'all. Look at the symmetry here. Look at this half circle going almost at the same angle. We've got this 45. I start seeing 45s and circles everywhere. I don't know what that is, but it's everywhere. Here it is a little closer. And here we have another, I should say favorite, Plutia marsh fleabane. And a lot of it has such a strong odor, you'll never forget that one. We have different thoughts on what it smells like. Goldenrod, such a misunderstood and often overlooked plant. It's sometimes so common, you forget to really look at its structure, its beauty, and I think most of y'all know it's not making y'all sneeze. That's ragweed. But I love ragweed too. Now we know once this is starting to bloom that fall is not far behind. It's your late summer bloomer, Cardinal Flower. There's just a few of those out here at the swamp, but I know where they are, and when the road sprayers don't hit them, they're always there. This year, they were not hit. This is just from a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to train everybody up, but y'all know it's challenging. Now the tupelos are dropping. They're dropping right now. This is about where we are right now at the swamp. And the tupelos lose their leaves so early, and they start covering the floor in the muddy banks, and starts looking. The water, it does not look like this year. The water's pretty high this year from all the rain, but this is typically a little more what it looks like there on the northern end. I love a lot of all the egrets and herons and ibis are this time of year are so fun. Occasionally I'll see a wood stork or spoonbill, but it's typically just egrets. And this piece is really about the alligator snapping turtle more than it is about the egret. But this is a very large piece that's life size. And, chanterelles, they've just had a nice bloom. This is from last year. I could just show y'all a whole thing of funguses. I'm just going to go through that pretty fast. And they're just so fascinating in form and shape. And there's a lot of fungal variety out at the swamp, which I think that means, for me, that's a good sign. When you have a lot of variety in your forest floor with fungus, I think I'm doing some reading on the connections that they create between all the plants out there. And so I want to know way more about that topic now. I like to play with collage and some of the forms that I see. These sorts of pieces I do in my studio. Most of what y'all are seeing I do on location, but just like this. There's our strawberry bush popped open, and this is what it looks like right now in the forest. It's little seeds dangling. And back to a little more duckweed. I could not, But it is forever also a form I'm fascinated with in my art, and I've done a big series of little collages where I'm, representing how things floating in duckweed or floating on the water surface, just like in the forest floor. So I took this picture last year. This is one of the little survey markers that was starting to alert me to the cut before those signs were even up. So. I call that Pawpaw Point. There's a nice area where there's a beautiful stand of pawpaw that just get that beautiful yellow, and that's a magical spot. And this is typically what it looks like near that boardwalk area. Should y'all come visit right now? More duckweed. All right, now. This plant, y'all know, this is witch hazel. Once you see witch hazel, that's like, okay, fall's kind of reached its peak, it's fixing to be winter. And this is going to be generally I'm seeing this mid to late November. And it's one of the few things I know that really flowers, and I look forward to seeing. I think of them as little pom-poms going, yay, winter. They look like little yellow pom-poms, and you have to look close, because here's these. This is like an understory kind of a tree, a smaller tree, but they're they're kind of up there. And if you don't, if you don't know to look, you could at eye level, you're not going to see that. So you kind of pay attention to where your witch hazel is during the year with its leaf, and then you go look for its flower. Now, once I just put in, y'all have 2 bird shots, and these are the 2. But I did have a really nice. The bard, he's one of my friends. He's probably he's my buddy. I hear him every time I go out. He's very curious. Y'all see, he's looking at me. I'm in my boat, and he sat there while I painted, and I just kept going. This is unreal, and I just kept getting in closer and closer. Anyway, he stayed there for at some point I looked up and he was gone. But anyway, he's definitely. He's your haunt. He's your haunt in the swamp. He's going to hopefully, if you've got a decent swamp, he's in it. So, now a lot of people say, people say, well, Robin, when should I go to the swamp? What's your favorite time of the year? And I mean, whatever the season is, that's my favorite time of the year. But if I could actually tell you to go, I would tell you go in the winter, and that's probably not what people would think, but you're not going to have to deal with mosquitoes. But you have this light. The light comes in, and the light creates these reflections, allows you to notice things that you wouldn't notice otherwise, things growing on the trees. It's just a different way to view it. But if you're a little leery of swamps, start in the winter, and then you'll be hooked. And then this is the kind of stuff you notice. This is a favorite texture of mine, and I loved it well before I knew what created it. And here's he did it. It's all his fault. The he and she here. But this is your yellow-bellied sapsucker. They fly down from the north and spend their winters in our forest. And they're not in just swamps, but that's going to be one of their preferred habitats. And they drill holes in trees, and they're called sapsuckers for a reason. I could go, I could talk all day about that bird. But they also like the insects that come to their sap wells. But I love the holes they drill. More textures, things you're going to notice when you're there. This is there all year round, well, not necessarily all year round, but the old seeds might. But in the winter, you're not distracted by plants, so you see stuff. And river cane. This is my new obsession, which I don't. I've really been studying on the Delta recently and what happened to the Delta, and it's just my new obsession with important species and species I've personally overlooked and taken for granted. So there's a good bit of it out at the swamp. There's one stand that has a little bit bigger stalks like this. Most of it's smaller, and it does not get big, and I'm not sure why. Here I am sitting in that stand of cane looking at vines. Are so beautiful in the winter because you really can see them well. And this is a muscadine vine I'm painting, and another plant that I've already shown you all the flower, but this is the leaf, and they're always apart from each other. But this is the cream flower orchid leaf, and it's, to me, when I see that, it is just winter. It's December. You just know it's going to be cold. But he's up showing himself, and the underside is this beautiful purple, and the top side is green with these little purple specks. And I always look forward to seeing him. He looks so fresh in the usually they're freshly fallen leaves. This is a little too more a lot of these slides are a little off on their color, but I tend to do, if y'all see, I do push the color in my work. So, but I'm showing the reflection of the sky and wet leaves in that past painting. And, a favorite, once again, just a favorite place when the water is just half in, half out like this in these sloughs. Dead tree. And another painting set up. I'm sitting on the island looking out. So we're almost done with the year here at the swamp. They're closing in on winter. And I think I realized as I was putting this together, I do a lot of painting in the winter out there. And this year I became conscious of why. I've tried to paint several times this year, and the mosquitoes have been terrible. I mean, I've been run out, and that's saying something, because you can't run me off easy. But with all the rain, it's just been rough. I just showed that. I like those. Sometimes my painting is more about the colors that just kind of putting a color palette down, that I'm looking at and bringing in, as much as about trying to actually make it look like something. So I love that. I love the color palette in the winter. Yeah, it's an oldie. That was way before I knew what a Virginia willow was. All right. This is wrapping up your year in the swamp part of this presentation, and this is not, I've got a little bit more to go, although what time is it? What am I doing? Oh, it's time to wrap it up? it is time to wrap it up. So, I knew 1 hour was going to fly by. I love this shot with Orion over here. Gosh, yeah, I'm just going to skip all this real quick and take y'all to y'all can just quickly see about my process here. Usually I have to require a deeper explanation about when I'm working directly with natural things. So here I am just rubbing it into the paper, okay? And I could tell y'all, y'all can see I can tell y'all lots about stuff. There are stories I would tell y'all about this particular, discovering this charcoal, discovering dipping paper in the water. It's the discovery that's been so fun for me. Discovering shapes and textures on things as I roll them around on the paper. And do rubbings and working directly with the swamp. The swamp has been my teacher, and I try to be in dialogue with it as much as I can in my work. And it's so much more fun when you're more direct, where I'm rubbing mud on the paper and doing those sorts of things. I'm really going to go fast through this. This is a series of birds that I've done focused on the swamp and different parts of the year. Pretty much the summing up of what I've just shown you. And I didn't take that shot. A friend of mine did, Larry Pace. But I threw it in because it inspired this particular design. Now, I did this to show, I wanted to work in the studio on a series. Here they are all together as one unit. And I did this because I wanted to, when I see all this when I'm painting, but I don't get to focus on it. And so I wanted to do something in the studio that really allowed me to focus on all these circles and 45s and all this intricacy and ecology that I see. So anyway, so that's what that is. Now, this is actually, I'm going to tell y'all the rest of the story in 3 minutes. If y'all need to go, I understand that it's 1 o'clock. And I'm going to try to leave this, if y'all want to know more about this particular thing afterwards, y'all, I would love to come and share it with y'all. But this, y'all see, this is the timber ribbon I saw. We're going to go back to the story, okay? So what's happened is I went to the city, and sure enough, there was a cut scheduled. And I'm like, whoa, because they've allowed our friends group to take care of this place for a decade. And they were like, well, it's just a select harvest. We're only taking everything over 18 inches at the ground. I'm like, what? It's like everything. So anyway, suffice it to say, I've had many wonderful people, many are in this room, emerge to give me support in every possible way. This Mississippi Forestry Commission came out. I'm looking for solutions. They're helping me try to figure out what maybe the cut's not that bad. Maybe I don't need to freak out. And they were pretty much, oh no, this is terrible. This is awful. But what gave me an idea was Wildlife Mississippi emerged, coming in to say, hey, we'll put some trails out there if the city won't cut. Tell them that. And while they were out there looking, and the Mississippi Forestry Commission, they were like, these trees, this is only, Robin, this tree's only worth about $30, and that tree's only worth about $20, because it's not, the quality of trees isn't, a lot of them are sick, a lot of them are diseased, a lot of them just have low branches. I don't know anything about forestry. I think a tree is worth $10,000. I thought they were going to make about $5 million or something. So apparently, the trees really were, each tree is between $20 and $100. And I'm like, oh my God, I bet you I could get people to buy those trees. Just pick a tree and friend it, and then that's their little tree friend, and maybe tree by tree we can save this place. I pitched it to the city. I'm going to make this sound real easy because it really has been something, but in a sense they've gone for it, okay? It's much more complex than that, but they weren't going to develop this, they just needed the money, okay? So they needed some assurances we could pull this off. It was beautifully yes. Yes. No, I'm sorry. This is a very good, I was about to explain these numbers. These are actually, this was the cruising sheet, okay? This is how many, the guy who cruised it, I was like, oh my God, there's 5, he counted the trees. But I would say this is how I came to my idea, I knew what was out there because he cruised it and I had the bid sheet, okay? And I was like, gosh, I was doing the math and I'm thinking, okay, some greenish, here's, so we have, of course, the most sweet gum. There's 1,436 sweet gum. And sweet gum are going to be between your $30 and $40 range on a tree because of the type, quality of anyway, I thought we can do this. I don't know how, but this is going to be fun, educational. People can pick a species and give an amount they want to give and actually have it connected to something, have a reason to come visit. And so I'm in the middle of this right now, okay? And here's an example. Getting all this tagged has become my biggest challenge because I don't have the mapping skills to do this, but I know some foresters who do, and I'm having some help right now. But like, for instance, we measured this with forestry techniques. We estimated its tonnage based on its size, which gives it a $100 value, okay? This particular bald cypress. Y'all notice was there 523 cypress? So this is the campaign. We're really just starting. I've been very quiet for months. Our city, we're in the middle of finalizing an agreement because I'm not going to do all this work and then have them decide to cut this in 5 years. So they agreed to not cut it, and they've agreed to work with us on a conservation agreement that will keep this long-term in a really nice habitat where my friends group is able to have in management control over it. So we are hopefully going to be going to the council in the next few weeks. Our city manager has told me that it has been very difficult to work with municipal law. I had no idea. I think none of us have because we're new to this, and we've stumbled our way through this process. And I think we've all just learned. I've learned to be very patient because I see it's going to happen. I just didn't know how. And there's been a lot of magic in this project, and part of the magic. I've had a church member call up Walt Grayson for me, and he just appeared one day, hey, I'm coming up, and we just started throwing this thing together before I was really ready. And the city, people have come out of, I cannot tell you all the friends I've found, and really the pleasure this whole process has been. What I thought was so awful has turned out to be a game changer for me in the swamp. Because not only have I found, it's told me who I really am. I already kind of knew it, but I realize now what my life's purpose is, whether it's with a paintbrush or in front of a group of people, is to help people see nature and want it to stay there. Okay, and I don't know what I'm doing, ever, not even with painting either. But not knowing what I'm doing with painting has helped to get me ready for this, because I know when I look at a blank canvas, I don't know how it's going to end up. When I get in front of the city council, I don't know how that's going to end up either. But, I'm kind of used to that, not knowing what's going to happen thing. So, Audubon, they're so wonderful. Strawberry Plains, this is Mitch Robinson. He's agreed to do some of this initial mapping with me, thank goodness. Here he's teaching me how to be a forester. I've learned a lot this year, y'all. And anyway, so here we are. This is where we are right now. I've got the Holmes Community College Forestry Program coming to do some more mapping with me in the next couple of weeks. And with the city about to make some final decisions with our conservation agreement, I think we're ready to move on to our next phase pretty soon. I just throw in a few little community shots because I wanted to just remind myself to tell y'all, for me, obviously I love the nature part of it, but I love that this is close to town. Let's go back to those maps. It's proximity to our downtown, but proximity to Grenada Lake and a bunch of other public green space. It's linking that chain. All of this is really important. But people can easily come here and visit. This is the Master Naturalist class of this year with Mitch, brought them out there. And this is a high school group who've come to take some invasive species out of our waterways. We've got water hyacinth. But they come out every year and help us work. But there's no one who can't come visit because it's right downtown. But it's worth seeing because it's right next to Grenada Lake and the river. So that's just my last slide to leave you with. If y'all can read more about this or ask me more about it. Our campaign, we've got to GoFundMe, and we have a website. So it's a little more thorough there. A few more people are given credit for things they've help us with. So do I have any questions or comments?
When are you going to get actually started on the funding?
Well, we've already started. We just had to do it. We didn't have a choice because the city we had to prove to the city this was possible. And so, thank goodness we've had that. I think my church family gets credit for that. As my pastor here at Northside Baptist Church, they jumped in, and people in Grenada, and we were quickly able to raise about $20,000 in about 8 weeks. And we had a man come in, and an anonymous donor, and he said, I'll give 50 cents on the dollar for everybody who gives. And so with those things gave the city what they needed. Okay, they're serious. And without that, I don't think this would not, it comes down to money, unfortunately. But because I wouldn't call Grenada a progressive town necessarily and thinking, but they're just a normal town like any town. So I guess my point is, I think this could be possible anywhere if you think creatively and someone cares, and maybe you just, I knew not to fight this one, but to try to work with what was needed. The city needed money. I wanted trees. What can we do? I want people to go out there too. So I think having a tree friend out there to go visit, you want to go visit your friend. So I hope that it works, and I hope I think it will, and Wildlife Mississippi is still going to be putting some trails in, and which will give us a little more access and people who want to go see trees. And our trails are very rustic now, and if you go there now, a lot of people don't feel comfortable with little small. We are going to keep some of it very wilderness, but because y'all know at this museum, but you need to have a place where people learn how to be comfortable in nature. And then and I see this swamp as that place. When they learn to be comfortable there, maybe they'll go out to Tallahatchie National Wildlife Refuge, where it's a little wilder, or Mount Mason. So, or begin to even look back in their own hunting properties, their own personal lands, and go, oh, wow, this is cool. So before, I did want to end by saying two things. Everything's connected. Y'all just don't know. I mean, everything I told y'all in the beginning, those maps, I probably spent too long on that, but understanding where something is, where you're connected to it, how you're connected to it is so important. And I always want y'all to end, I'm going to end, Mary Oliver is a favorite poet of mine. And probably all of y'all out here love her as well. Any of us nature lovers love Mary Oliver. And I'm going to tell y'all this because it's the only poem I have ever memorized other than in school. I'm going to leave y'all with this one thought, okay? Because she calls it Instructions on Living a Life. And I agree with her, and it can't be said any better. But pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. That's the whole poem. Thank you. I have a really, if anybody really does want more information on this, I do have a little flyer that I made that I actually am getting professional help on, but this is my version of our flyer if anybody wants to know more.
I think we all need to hear more.